All right. We are live on YouTube and live on Zoom. Feel pretty good that this worked the way it should. I am glad you're all here. We have our slideshow. I think everyone who is here, both on Zoom and in the sanctuary, has joined us before, but just in case, you should have all of the prayers in the slideshow in front of you, or if you want, you can use the prayer books in the sanctuary. I will be calling out page numbers, but we are going to join together for everything as we can. What am I doing? Okay. And just a reminder that as I say, please rise or please be seated, that I am inviting you to rise in body. As I say, please rise or please be seated, I am inviting you to rise either in body or in spirit as you are comfortable. So with that, I think we're just going to get started with our service and hope that our time together is one of meaning and Shabbat peace. We'll begin on page 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be extinguished. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. We'll continue singing Hine Ma Tov, how good it is for all of us to be together. Continue singing together on page 130, L'chu Nerananah, giving thanks to God for the gift and beauty of all creation. L'chu Nerananah, yai lai 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 lai, l'Adonai, yai lai 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 lai. Sing out to God, the maker. We'll continue singing together, Lecha Dodi, welcoming Shabbat like a bride or a queen. Ya la 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 Lecha Dodi, ya la 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 Likrat Kala, ya la 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela, Shamor B'Zachor, V'Liborecha. Continue welcoming Shabbat as we sing a song welcoming the ministering angels, the angels of peace, Shalom Aleichem, on page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyonim, Melech Malchei Hamlachot. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shuvchem l'shalom Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We'll continue as we kindle the Shabbat lights on page 120. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Maybe. This box got me wet. Oh, there we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We'll continue on page 146 as we rise for Baruch Hu. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Boreyom balayla, golelor mibnei choshech, golelor mibnei choshech, vechoshech mibnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Boreyom balayla, golelor mipnei choshech, golelor mipnei choshech, vechoshech mipnei or. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. We'll rise for Shema on page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'valechtecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha Leman kizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. We'll continue with Micha Mocha, our prayer for freedom and redemption for all people. Continue with Hashki Venu, a prayer asking for God's sheltering presence to be upon us this evening and every evening. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. continue with our tefillah as we rise together. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah Rav lehoshia. Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, micha mocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, melech memit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol. Please be seated. Yana emsacha v'komcha nala v'nelam v'nalo emsacha kivodcha malei olam. Yana emsacha v'komcha nala v'nelam v'nalo emsacha kivodcha malei olam. Darashti kirvatcha v'chol libi kiraticha u'tzeiti likratcha Lekrati mitzaticha. Yai la la elai, yai la la elai, yai la la ya la 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 la, yai la la elai, yai la la yai la elai, yai la la elai. Where might I go to find you, O exalted and hidden one? Yet where would I not go to find you, ever-present eternal one? My heart cries out to you, please draw near to me. The moment I reach out for you, I find you reaching in for me. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat. You are with us in our prayer, our love and our doubt, and our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance, and let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'odcha levadcha b'yira na'avod. O God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. We'll continue with a prayer for peace as we sing together Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Hasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, O Yisrael Amcha, Hasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon, lecho hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon, lecho hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Kasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Kasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Kasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Kasim leolam. Kasim leolam. Kasim leolam. We'll take a moment for our own quiet thoughts and prayers. Yehiyu leratzon imrefi behegyon ibi lefanecha. Adonai turi, Adonai turi. Goali Yehiyu leratzon imrefi behegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, megoali, megoali. We devote the next few moments of our service to hold in our hearts those who are in need of a prayer of healing, our family, our friends, our loved ones, anyone who needs a prayer of healing for body, of mind, or of spirit. If there are loved ones you are thinking of at this time and you're on Zoom and you want to write their names in the chat, I will read them in a moment. And in the sanctuary, if you have someone, please say their names. Esther Greenwald, Lauren Trichek, Roz Gibel, Danny Haynes, Andrew Rabiner. Brian Edelschick, Pat Adamson, for our loved ones who are in need of a prayer of healing, we say, Baruch atah Adonai rofeh hacholim. Blessed is God who brings healing to those who are in need of healing. We'll join together in singing Misha Berach. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe Berach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. All right. I don't really have a sermon per se this evening, more of an interesting answer to a question that I've always kind of been curious about, and it comes from something I watched, I can't even tell you how many years ago, but it's from this teaching I learned from Rabbi David Foreman, who's an Orthodox rabbi, and he has his own, virtual Beit Midrash called Aleph Beta. Most of the videos are on there for free, so if you're interested, alephbeta.org, I think, is the website. But the question that he asks, and it actually, it's interesting for a couple of reasons. Even though the verses that he cites are not specifically from this week's Torah portion, we just started the Torah portion, the book in the Torah of Leviticus, which most people when they think of the book of Leviticus, they think of something called the Holiness Code about priests and about the sanctuary and about sacrifices. And the first Torah portion that we are technically in this week is called Vayikra. It's the beginning. The name, that's the Hebrew name for Leviticus. And indeed, it is mostly about sacrifices, but in chapter 5, at the beginning of the 5th chapter, there is this really interesting kind of a reference to a law about somebody who, when they have an opportunity to bear witness to something, they don't. And so I won't go in more into it than that at the moment, but I'll tell you that in that way, what I'm about to say about Purim is kind of related to this week's Torah portion, which I think is kind of interesting. Anyway, so when we think about Purim, and even from the book of Esther, and the book of Esther tells us in a kind of roundabout way at the end of the book, the book of Esther only has 10 chapters. It's not really very long, which is, I guess, why we are supposed to read the whole Megillah on Purim. And at the end of the book, it tells us that Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them and had cast pur, that is a lottery or dice, to terrify them and to destroy them. But when she, Esther, came before the king, he commanded by the letters that that is Haman's wicked device, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Therefore, they call these days Purim after the name of lots. Therefore, because of all of the words of Esther's letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and that which had come unto them. So, the question that Rabbi Foreman asks, too far. That Rabbi Foreman asks with respect to these concluding verses of the book of Esther, he says, are these verses really in the right order? That is, Haman picks pur, or casts a lottery or throws dice to decide when the Jews should die. Esther saves the Jews, and that's why we call the day Purim. And the big question from all of this is, why would we name our holiday after the device used to mentally torture us? That doesn't really make sense. It's supposed to be it's actually one of our most joyful holidays. And the book of Esther tells us that we're naming our holiday after these things that Haman uses. But the truth, as Rabbi Foreman says, is much more complicated, that the holiday of Purim is called Purim for something Esther did and not something that Haman did. So, and the key, that's not what I want. The key to this whole idea that we'll kind of get to in a minute kind of rests on one particular moment in the story. That is when Mordecai is sitting out in the courtyard wearing sackcloth and ashes. You all, I'm sure, have heard this part of the story before, and Esther's wondering what's wrong. And Mordecai says, if you keep silent in this crisis, he explains what's happening, that Haman's about or is trying to destroy the Jewish people. And he says, on the contrary, if you keep silent in this crisis, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another quarter, while you and your father's house will perish. And who knows, perhaps you have attained to royal position for just such a crisis. And we have to ask, what kind of pep talk is this? It's the worst pep talk in human history. Mordecai basically says, you have to do something, but if you don't, it doesn't really matter because we'll be saved anyway. But you'll die. You'll perish. Your father's house will disappear. So, but maybe you were put in this position for this reason. So, he asks, is this a dangerous game of reverse psychology? And you can ask the question, is Esther really a significant character, a significant person in the story, or not? So, what is interesting about this, when you do some biblical exegesis, that is, when you look at this story compared to another text in the Hebrew Bible, you can actually see that this is actually, you could, I should say, see this as a kind of code. Mordecai was speaking in a way that Esther would understand what her real job was, just from the particular words that he's referencing. In particular, the words that I've highlighted. You can see this phrase, hacharesh tacharishi, which means if you surely, or if you will ultimately keep silent. And then this phrase, ve'at uveit avicha tovedu, which is you and your father's house will perish. So those two phrases are key to kind of clue us into where the idea comes from. And what he's alluding to is actually from this story, or this, it's not really a story, it is a law about the annulment of vows from the book of Numbers. And so this is what it says. A vow or a restrictive oath that would cause hardship, her husband can affirm or her husband can annul. I will say that is the typical translation, but what we're going to see is something interesting in a minute. But if her husband is silent, that is, silent from day to day, then he will have affirmed her vows, the vows she took, and he was silent about. But he was silent on the day he heard it, but if he makes them null and void after he heard them, then he is the one who bears her guilt, her sin. There are the laws that God these are the laws that God commanded Moses between a man and wife and a father and daughter, being in her youth in her father's house. So there's, again, you can see the connection with the father's house. You can see the connection with this phrase right here, hacharesh yacharish, if you are surely silent. And so the question is, why is this significant, and what does it have to do with Purim? So I'm not going to read this, but I'll explain what it says. So the Torah, through this section in the book of Numbers, is basically allowing for the annulment of certain kind of vows. That is, in particular, there's actually two things. The one I showed you specifically is if a husband hears his wife making a vow, and on the exact same day that he hears it, he is allowed, technically according to the Torah, to say this vow doesn't count, and that way if she doesn't fulfill the vow, no guilt comes upon her. So some people look at that as a protection idea. It's also very misogynistic, but that's not the point. The point is that it is possible to annul someone else's vow under certain circumstances. That's kind of the general framework, even though in this particular case it's a husband annulling a wife's vow. But the phrasing in Hebrew is important, and we'll see why in a minute. So this phrase, lehacharish, which we read, which was highlighted a couple times in Hebrew, means silence, but it's more than just like a kind of minor silence. There are other words to be silent in Hebrew, lishtok, like if you wanted to say sheket means silence, to be quiet. But lahacharish is only used specifically for human beings, and it's based on the same root as for someone who's deaf. And basically, what this text is saying is that the person is allowing themselves to be deaf to a particular issue. So if the husband, in the case of the wife making a vow, it is either ignores her in a way that would allow her to continue with making the vow, or in the case of Esther, if she ignores the issue or makes herself deaf to what's going on, then she won't act. That's the kind of emphasis we're placing here. So here's the kicker. This is how it all breaks down. So this is the phrase that we just read. Note this particular dot where my mouse is hovering. It says Isha yikimenu ve'isha yiferenu. So, which this means her husband can overturn, her husband can annul, and specifically referring to the vow. If we change this phrase with vowels, and we take this dot out, this dot, by the way, only really serves a grammatical function, but if we take it out, it changes the entire meaning of the sentence. Instead, it says a woman can overturn, a woman can annul. So when Mordecai was telling this terrible pep speech to Esther, what he was really doing was telling her, probably a teaching that he had taught her before, is that this phrase really is an empowerment of women in the Torah. There are other commentaries that say you're specifically not supposed to read the Torah with any of the dots and dashes, because if you have a dot, even one dot, it can dramatically change the meaning of a word from her husband to the woman herself. A woman has the power to annul somebody else's vow. And that's exactly what Queen Esther did in the story of Purim. The King Ahasuerus, at the end of the story, even once Esther says, Haman is out to kill me and my people, the king, in his buffoonish way, says, well, I've already written this decree, I can't overturn it myself. But with your help, you can go around and say the people have the right to defend themselves, which is ultimately the triumph of the story of Purim. The king never actually changed the law, never changed the date. The king did initiate a new thing, saying that Haman and his family were going to be destroyed, but it was Esther who changed the king's position and ultimately went and told the people that they were allowed to defend themselves. And if you look at this word, the end of this phrase, Yifeirenu is the same root as por. You can see the pei and the resh right here where my mouse is hovering over, and that is why Rabbi Foreman says that the holiday of Purim is called Purim, because the word in Aramaic means a lottery, but por in Hebrew means annulment. So why is this important for us today? I think one of the most important pieces of the holiday of Purim, if we're going to celebrate something and try to take something away from the story, it is that we cannot stand silently by when we see things going on in the world that are not right. And in that way, if we are not silent, if we don't make ourselves deaf to the issues around us, in that way we are emulating Queen Esther and are causing or are doing things in the world to bring celebration and redemption. And I think that is what our goal for Purim should be. Shabbat Shalom. We are going to continue with Aleinu on page 586, and we'll rise together. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'goraleinu kechol hamona, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Please be seated. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. We devote the next few moments of our service to honor those who have come before us, those for whom this Shabbat and this week were a yahrzeit or an anniversary of their passing. We hold in our hearts Arthur Dressner, Jules Hyman, Martin Kahn, Sarah Kahn Einstein, Walter Fall, Selma Zander, Howard Abel, Israel Kustner, Jules L. Kaplan, Kenneth E. Dreyfus, Francis Hartman, and Bella Lieberman. And if you're on Zoom and you'd like to add a name of a loved one who you're holding in your hearts, please feel free. And if there's anyone in the sanctuary who has a name that they'd like to say for Kaddish, please do. Harold Rabiner, Gail Rose Carmack, we say, Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of our loved ones who came before us be a blessing. We'll join together on page 598 as we rise together for Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei d'kedusha b'richu le'elam kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace in the heavens on high bring peace to us here on earth, to all Israel and all people of the world. And may God send comfort to all those who are mourning. Together we say, Amen. Please be seated. We have several announcements this evening. The first is this Sunday, March 13th at 3 o'clock p.m., we are hosting Tuba Gin as a part of our Music on Sunday series. I believe it is still possible to buy tickets online or at the door. So please, it should be a nice concert, and I hope you'll join us. On Wednesday of this coming week, from 6 to 8, we'll be celebrating Purim with a Beatles Purim spiel. First, before the Purim service and spiel, we'll be having dinner, Pita House, at 6 p.m. It's $5 per person, and we need an RSVP, a head count by Monday. So if you are interested in joining us, please RSVP by Wednesday. I know that at least as of this morning, Kim texted me and said we have over 60 people signed up already to join us on Wednesday, which is phenomenal, but there's still room for more if you'd like to join us. So Wednesday at 6 o'clock is dinner, 7 o'clock we're going to start our service and spiel. It should be a lot of fun. I'll have all of the lyrics to the parodied Beatles songs on the screen, so if you want to make it like a karaoke thing where you're singing along, you are certainly welcome. It'll be a lot of fun. Greenville is one of the cities that will be hosting a project called Hate Ends Now Tour. Hate Ends Now Tour is a cattle car, a replica of a cattle car from the Holocaust. And Congregation Beth Israel is going to be hosting this car on March 20th from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m. The cattle car stepping in and out of darkness is an interactive, immersive multimedia experience inside an exact replica of a World War II cattle car that was used to transport Jews and other targeted groups to the concentration camps and extermination camps. Visitors will be able to emotionally connect to the displays as well as the experience through being immersed in this historical space. It's actually going to be in Greenville for a few days in addition to this. I think starting on March 16th, it'll be in Greenville, but it'll be in different places around town. But if you search Hate Ends Now Tour on Google, you'll be able to find all of the different locations. I believe that the program is telling us that it's a 12 and up experience. So, because it is quite a powerful experience. On Tuesday, April 19th, we'll have our next iteration of our Temple of Israel book club. We'll be reading the New York Times best-selling book, The Man in the White Sharkskin Suit, My Family's Exodus from Old Cairo to the New World. It's a critically acclaimed book, and it should be a really good discussion. So I hope you'll join us. We also have our Spring Mitzvah Day. It's at the end of April now, Pat is saying. Devin, wrote earlier that it was the 19th. In the bulletin, it says the 14th, but that is not right. But I guess we'll keep your eyes on the bulletin, and if there's a correction to the date that I just said, or the one that was in the bulletin, you will know soon too. On April 24th, we're having a mitzvah day. It'll start with our family service at religious school at 9:30 with our kickoff. And then the work will actually begin at 10, planting flowers, cleaning up the yard, cleaning out the closet, organizing things, window washing, and I'm sure there will be more tasks added as needed, but it is a mitzvah to take care of your community, and so this is a really good project, and even if for religious school kids or B'nai Mitzvah students who are looking for a mitzvah project, this certainly qualifies. So, and also during the day, we'll be holding a food drive. So, if you have canned goods or other non-perishable food items that you would like to bring that help support the food pantry at United Ministries, we are going to try and fill up Roger's trailer. Yes, Pat is confirming it is April 19th is the book club. And last, but certainly not least, the Peace Center is hosting Violins of Hope, which was an organization founded by a father and son duo who rescued and restored violins from the Holocaust. And they have a troupe of Bulgarian dancers, and they use local musicians and also musicians who are a part of the project to play these violins as a part of a concert, and there's a dance piece to this concert. It really is a very cool thing that Greenville is going to be hosting this organization. Again, it's at the Peace Center on May 4th at 7:30. And the tickets are $35 to $75, and I believe there are still tickets available. So I'm hoping that Temple of Israel will have a good showing at this event because it should be fantastic. And that's all I have. We are going to say some blessings over Kiddush and Motzi and our children, and then conclude our service. First, we have Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen l'chaim. I don't even know what kind of juice that is, but it's good. And we say a blessing for our children. You get to be our representative for all of our congregation's children, Kyle. Malia, is she hiding? Oh, she's hiding. All right, both of you. And for all of our children, again, whether we can see them on Zoom or are holding them in our hearts, we say this blessing for all of them. Yesimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim v'chi Menashe. May you be blessed like the sons of Joseph, Ephraim, and Menashe. Yisimech Elohim Kisara Rivka Rachel v'Leah. May you be blessed like the mothers of our people, like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. We wish for all of our children to feel proud of who they are and also strive always to be the best version of themselves with these words of blessing from the Torah. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God's light shine on you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's presence always feel close to you, and may you always be blessed with the most precious gifts of wholeness and peace. We say together, Amen. And last but not least, we'll say Motzi over our challah. Motzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. We are going to conclude our service with a prayer for peace, Oseh Shalom. In a world that is so desperately in need of peace, may our prayers go out to all of those who are suffering from what's going on in the world. Oseh Shalom Bimroma Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imeru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimroma Ya'aseh Shalom Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm going to unmute everybody on Zoom to say Shabbat Shalom, or invite you to unmute.